I'm Mish. I'm a product strategist and designer working in a startup company in the UAE. So I've moved across from India to Dubai, and I've been working across companies in the UK. So I'm quite familiar with that. And I'm just hoping to touch briefly upon accessing education in the current world right now. So my presentation is actually just going to talk about how we all came into thinking that education is, we all grew up believing that education looked one specific way. So you go into university, you get a degree, you get a stable job, and somehow life works itself out. But the world has changed right now, and a university doesn't really equate to a degree. Also, career paths aren't really linear anymore. So what I mean by that is somebody studies law but ends up in tech. Somebody starts in customer service and becomes a product manager. Somebody learns video editing and builds an entire business out of it just by being very active on social media. So the path to a career isn't very linear anymore, and you can reinvent yourself as much as you like, and how many ever times as you like. A couple of things that are useful in today's world, based out of what I've seen as a working professional, is these particular skill sets that I've listed out on my screen. Digital literacy, which is basically working with digital tools, it's very important. But that doesn't really mean that you need to know all the tools that are out there. It just means that you have to experiment with what everybody's talking about, just so that you understand that so that you get you step into the field that everybody's actually talking about. But at the same time, don't be too narrowed down into just, I want to master this tool, I want to be an AI engineer. None of that is actually really important. What actually matters right now is just knowing the landscape, just understanding the lay of the land and going from there. And the other three bits that I've listed here are communication, storytelling, adaptability, and resilience. All of these are skill sets that we all have within ourselves. And in the current world, where everybody is a clone of one another, everybody is speaking the same language, in the same way, and using ChatGPT to talk about anything and everything, I think having a personal point of view is very important. And especially people from who've, you know, moved across from moved across from different regions, have to rebuild their lives, they understand how adaptability and resilience actually matters quite a bit. So we have that in spades, and we have to kind of tap into that and amplify these three skills that I think is very important for anybody in looking to start a career or looking to get ahead in their career. The UK has gaps in certain in six key industries, and this is not just the UK. It's also in the United Arab Emirates. It's also in India, from where I'm at. It's also in the US and in the UK. So healthcare, engineering, cybersecurity, green energy, logistics, and constructions are something that completely require us to, immerse ourselves in. And I think it's important for us to understand that opportunities lie within these space and how we can tap into these particular industries. But what I really want to understand here, what I want to talk to you about is especially all of these industries that I've listed has multiple ways in it. It's not just one door. So the first path is the university path where you have a guided curriculum and everything is taught to you and you go through step A, B, C. And the other one is self-learning, which is a bit of a rabbit hole, but you can start learning right away. The university path is very valuable, and it's, I think, in today's world, instead of just chasing, which is the most impressive degree, I think what we as individuals who want to leverage education is to ask ourselves three questions. What skills will I leave with if I take up this particular subject? For example, say engineering. What opportunities exist out there in the current market? And do you see yourself enjoying this in the long term? And I think that's the most important question to ask yourself. Do you see yourself enjoying this? Because if you pick a subject just because it's very popular right now, or if it's and you chase the hype, which is, I want to learn AI because everybody's learning AI, but you don't enjoy it, you're going to drop it in the long term. So you have to enjoy what you're picking. And especially when you're thinking about doing like a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, I think it's important to not just limit to one geography. For example, If you just, for example, just don't look at it in terms of getting a degree from a UK university. Maybe explore something around in the Europe as well, because there are very strong courses out there in the entire European region, and they're oftentimes in English, and they offer maximum flexibility in terms of like tuition fees as well as flexible entry routes than most people expect. So I think it's very important for us to kind of be open to getting a degree from different geographies. Um, and finally, when you do decide to get a degree, and I think the most important thing to actually be really focused upon is the subject. So after you've picked your subject, I would recommend you go to every university within that particular locale. So for example, the UK or Germany, where I was looking into exploring a human computer interaction course, and that's very popular in Germany. So what I did was I looked at every university within Germany that was offering that course, and then I looked at their course content. I looked at the tuition fees, the scholarships, the entry requirements, and the post-study opportunities, and that is very key. You can study a degree, but then if that doesn't really equate to an employment or opportunity, that it just, I mean, it's good to follow a passion, but at the same time, you need something to fund your passions as well. So you need something for your 9 to 5. So I think it's very important when you consider a particular country to study, do your degree in, just make sure that you post-study opportunities are there within that particular country. And that's the most tedious part. The third step is where when you decided on a subject, and then when you have to deep dive into, which university is offering that subject, how much, what is being taught in that subject, what is the tuition fee, what are the entry requirements, and what are the post-study opportunities. And after that, the application process, actually started a year in advance. So for example, if you're thinking about start studying in 2027, you start the application 2026, a year in advance, where the most tedious part was finding all of these details. But after that, you have to think about, your motivation letter, the statement of purpose. You have to think about getting your letter of recommendations from your professors or your work colleagues. And all of that takes an ample amount of time. And entry requirements also vary quite a bit for different countries. For example, for a person coming from India versus somebody coming from the Middle East, the entry requirements are widely different. So you have to really do your research, and it takes a long amount of time. So invest that time properly. That's the university part. Um, the second part, which I'm actually a personal advocate of, is the self-learning path. And this is how I started my career as well. So a lot of, for me, was tinkering around on the internet to find out what are the subjects that I'm really passionate about, or what do I really lean towards, what makes my eye twinkle quite a bit. And what I would do personally for self-learning path is, for example, if I decided to, so right now I work in cybersecurity. I wasn't really sure I would like the field, or if I wanted to invest time into studying that particular field. So what I did personally was go into online e-learning platforms like Coursera, YouTube, EDX, or even online YouTube channels from MIT, and learned about cybersecurity. And when I came into the field, so I thought, it is just about it's most people imagine cybersecurity basically means, it's a very technical person coding in a very dark room somewhere, but it's actually not. Cybersecurity is a broad field, and there are many branches to it. So it needs people who can communicate risks properly. It needs people who can, research into human behavior. It needs people who can manage operations. And for me personally, since I'm a researcher and product strategist, for me, niching into studying human behavior was something that I was passionate about. So all of that I got to know only because I tapped into my self-discovery learning path, where I was learning from all different online platforms, just to see which branch I would want to which branch I would be keen into exploring in cybersecurity. And that's the same for healthcare as well. It's not just doctors and nurses. There are researchers, there are mental health advocates, there are coordinators, there are interpreters. So the industry is much bigger than the stereotype, and the only way that you would know it is if you actually, venture into the field, learn by yourself a little bit before you actually take up a degree, if you decide to study at a university at a later point. Um, yeah, and whether you go the university route or you go through the self-learning path, learning only becomes visible or it's advantageous if you know you produce something at the end of it. So this is something that my personal mentors have been strong advocates for is learn, build, and share. And I'm guilty. So I want to learn everything before I actually do produce some beautiful work at the end of it. But that's the point. I get stuck in a very passive learning loop. In order to get out of it, this is a three-step framework: learn, build, and share. So learning can happen via university. It could be YouTube, it could be your mentors, it could be your apprenticeships, or it could just be, you know, you following your curiosity. And then what you do at the end of it is when you learn even the tiniest of bit, what you do is produce something out of it. So make something what you learn. So this could be like a small project. It could be a blog. It could be like a post, or it could just be a note within your diary as such. And one thing to remember in the build stage, and this is I'm guilty of this as well, because you know you want what you build to be perfect, but it doesn't really have to be. It just has to show you know, you learn something, can you apply it into a project or into a research paper or anything. And the last bit is actually to share, which is the most uncomfortable bit, because you come into the field thinking, why would anybody want to read something that's already been written? But it's not so much about them, but more about you, because you're documenting your point of view. You're showing your voice into the world. And when I mentioned earlier that everybody is talking about the same thing, so your point of view would be that differentiator. And trust me when I say this, when you share your work, and this has been my personal experience as well, when you talk about anything that you do based on what you learned, it brings your tribe of people, so people who think like you, people who want to expand on your thinking, or people who want to work with you. So it kind of just like you know, brings together opportunities for you. So it's very important. And this whole sharing bit can just be about, you know, writing on LinkedIn, say what you learned this week, a project that you made, a problem that you solved, something that you learned from a course and you want to make reflections, ideas you're exploring, or ideas that you think now make no sense because you learned something new. And you have to do that on social media. Social media is really big, and I'm not really big on sharing on social media, but social media can be so much more than just entertainment. For example, LinkedIn, it's a very dry tool, but at the same time, when you start writing from your point of view, I think I think that's where you discover opportunities, and you sort of build like a community around yourself, and your community ends up being your growth. So this is something that I've been told quite a bit by my mentors. So initiative creates visibility. So when you take an initiative to, you know, start learning something or posting something, that's your initiative, and that creates visibility, and opportunities comes through visibility. I think one of the biggest shifts today is that opportunities don't really come, especially employability when you're entering the job market, doesn't really come from just applying formally anywhere. So you know, just sending out your resume or your CV doesn't really help, just because there is a lot of supply versus demand. And I've just been I've had a conversation with my brother today, and he just finished his master's degree in software engineering, and he was just telling me about, you know, there are too many software engineers, not enough jobs. So you need to stand out from the crowd. And the only way that that's worked for me personally in the past is if there was a company I really wanted to work at, I probably wouldn't really just stop at sending a CV. I'd research the company. I'd understand what they do. I'd see gaps within or within what they're trying to solve. I would make a presentation about my observations, and I would cold message people. Whether they reply or not, that's up to them. But I would send them a cold message saying, "Hey, this is what I've come across with your company. Do you want to chat, or just share your observations?" And somebody who's curious enough would get back to you. If not, you actually learn something about a company, and no learning is ever wasted. Um, yeah. So, and I think. throughout this whole process of where you're learning or where you're hunting for a job, it's very important to not try to navigate this entire mayhem alone. People are actually a lot more willing to help than we can imagine, especially people who are way above, not people who are two levels above us, people who are maybe 10, 20 levels above us. They're actually willing to help. But then you have to be really thoughtful about how you approach them. Something that's worked for me in the past is again, cold message people, just send out a connection request on LinkedIn. Tell them, show them your curiosity, but also show them that your vulnerable side. For example, you could just say, I'm trying to learn more about this field. I have X questions. That's being very specific. Or you could just, since if you walked into the field blind and you're just really interested, you could just say that, I'm really new to this field. I'm not really sure what to do. Would you mind sharing advice? And most of them actually get back. So my advice in this particular cold message would be to reach out to people who are 10 levels above you, because they would get back to you a lot faster than people who are just 2 to 3 levels above you. Um, Yeah, and finally, I think a few resources that's helped me in the past, and I still use it right now, would be to e-learn. So Coursera has a lot of free courses that you can leverage, and this is where it's very important for especially when I told you, when you're doing a lot of self-learning, Coursera is your starting guide, because it gives you everything within that particular course that you can reference, and it's free, and you don't really need to get a certificate by the end of it, because companies now don't really care about the certification as much as how you can apply what you learn to a particular problem or a project. So just order the course. Similarly for EDX, these are really good platforms. In terms of employability, I think just kind of researching into every country's career service is very important, because they list out all the resources that are required for that particular country, and also going into company portals to identify internships, apprenticeships, and everything that you would probably need to apply for a job there. And there's no easy process to this. You actually have to go into company portals to see if internships are being offered. um, Unimoocs, this is my personal favorite, where you get high quality content from universities totally for free. Like Oxford, Yale, MIT. I think even Stanford and Harvard offer a bunch of courses. I know. I think Imperial does as well. I'm not really sure, but we can check on that. So reference online MOOCs for like high quality education, high quality university level curriculums that you can reference for free before you actually if you want to end up doing a degree. And finally is this bit, and especially the last three bit, Luma, Meetup, and Eventbrite. These are three particular platforms that you can leverage. And I'll tell you why, because these platforms teach you skills that you need in the current world. And these are all sort of like very short, focused workshops. So you get into a group of like, say, 15, 20 people, you workshop a particular skill set, learn an AI tool or whatever. And this helps you, get in touch with that skill in a very practical manner in a very short time as well. So you're not investing too much time, self-learning and trying to perfect something. You get in, you learn what's needed, and then you get out, and then you go out and apply. These three would be my hands-down favorite to just know what is happening in the industry, whichever industry that you're interested in. And ADP list is a brilliant tool, just because you get access to all the professionals working in different fields. You can book their time in, and they're absolutely free, and they essentially become mentors for you. And this is where you go ahead and find mentors in different fields. And I highly recommend you find mentors to help you through um, different gaps that you think are within your profile. And LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn it's a dry platform, but you find lots of credible people there. So just cold message them there. Yeah, that's it for me. It was a really high overview into how you would access education and training in the future. But if you want to deep dive into this into some of these a bit more, we could absolutely do that if you could just drop me an email, and then we could get into, application shortlisting, and then helping you out with your statement of purpose, or just sort of geeking out with how we could do a lot of self-learning curriculum as well. And I think that's it from me. If you have questions, we could answer it at the end. I think Amir's going to take over for the next bit.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, if you are here with us today. And hello to all of you who are watching the recording online. My name is Amir. My presentation is going to be more focused on how to prepare yourself to enter the UK job market. In my day job, I'm a researcher and lecturer, but in the last probably 12 years, most of my time, my research and my career has been focused on working with people from refugee, immigrant, and asylum-seeking background, specifically in supporting them to have access to education and employment. My presentation is not going to be as beautiful and as colorful as Mish, because as she mentioned, she is a designer, an artist. But I start from this image, which gives you an overview of the education system in the UK. So probably many of you have arrived a few months or a few years ago from different countries with different education systems. And with the purpose of starting a course or starting a job here, you need to somehow adjust yourself to the education system of the UK so that you can find your way into the employment. As you can see, the system here is a level-based system, starting from level 1 and 2, which is the high school level, then level 3, which is the college level, level 4, 5, 6, undergraduate or bachelor level, level 7 is postgraduate masters, and level 8 is doctorate level. And as you can see at the bottom, we have 3 main routes, number 1, number 2, and number 3 to enter this system. In the previous session, Mish explained and focused more on number 1, academic route, and how to enter the system and further employment through going to university. Like many other countries, you finish your high school, you go to college, you go to university, you have your degree, and then you start applying for jobs. However, unlike many other countries, going to university is not the first option for people here in the UK. So last time that I checked, less than 40% of the students decide to go to university. Probably, I think it was around 36%, which means about 40% or more, they decide not to go to university. And instead, they go through vocational and job-related training. And this is very different to the countries that many of us coming from. For instance, the country that I come from, everyone wants to go to university. So from the very early age, your parents, they push you that if you want to have a good job, you need to go to university. But that's not the case here. And as I said, I work for university, I teach at the university, but then I don't suggest everyone going to university. So the first main decision is, do you really need to go to university to get the job that you're interested in or not? And probably for many of you, the answer is no, university is not the only option and is not the best option. So today I'm going to focus more on number 2 and number 3. So if you don't want to go to university, or many of you may have university degrees from your country, wherever your country of origin is, you have a degree, so it doesn't make sense for you to go through 3 years or 4 years or 2 years of studying at university again if you're looking for some specific type of jobs. So have this in mind. I'll ask Kotaiba to share. I'll send them to Kotaiba, and hopefully he's going to share the slides with you, so you can come back to this and try to find where are you on this kind of ladder and in this particular system. So I'm going to very briefly explain the training and vocational routes, different kind of qualifications that we have in non-university education, and trying to give you some ideas about how to decide which option is the best option for you, how to find support, different type of support available specifically for people from refugee and asylum seeking background. And then at the end, hopefully there'll be time for questions and answers. Okay, so vocational training simply means job-related training. So it's the kind of training, it's the kind of education for which you don't need to go to university. Instead, for most of the vocational qualifications, you go to college. These are short-term courses, so unlike university courses, which may take you at least 3 years for undergrad and 1 or 2 years for postgrad and 5 years or 4 years for a PhD degree, these are usually short-term courses, as short as 1 semester. It could be 3 months, or it could be 1 academic year or 2 academic years, depending on the level that you're applying for. Again, because my talk is focused on people who are here based on refugee visas or asylum seeking visas or Ukrainian scheme visas or resettlement visas. So it's very important to understand what kind of courses you're entitled to apply for. So if you have refugee status, or if you have any type of leave to remain, you can apply for most of the vocational courses, for most of the college courses. However, if you don't have leave to remain, specifically for people with still waiting for their asylum claims to be processed, there could be some restrictions. It could be different from person to person. It could be different from college and course to college and course. So, for instance, probably many of you already with asylum seeker status already doing functional skills or ESOL courses at college. But if you want to apply for accountancy course, there are some restrictions. So it's very important, first of all, to understand how your immigration status can provide some kind of restrictions to the courses that you would like to apply for. But as I said, if you have any type of resettlement, refugee, humanitarian protection, and so on and so forth, it's very likely that you can apply to any of these vocational training courses. When it comes to funding, who is going to pay for those courses? Again, it very much depends on your personal situation. If you're a refugee or on any kind of resettlement visa, you can apply, but then the funding depends on your income. And generally speaking, for people who are unemployed and who are in receipt of any kind of welfare benefit, for instance, universal credit, it's free for you to study level 1 entry levels and level 1 and level 2. However, for level 3 and above, there could be different conditions and different criteria. The best thing to do is to reach out to the college that you would like to study there, and then they can give you specific advice about, can you study that course free of charge, or is there any opportunity to have funding for that particular course. However, something to have in mind, when you go to a college, and I had tens of these cases in the past, not everyone understands the recent and latest changes in the rules and regulations around immigration and education. So even if they say, no, you cannot do it, try to reach out to someone who has the understanding of the sector. For instance, if you are a client of Launchpad, there are people there who understand whether you can have access or not. So if you hear no from one college, don't think that it's no, 100% no. Try to have a second view on that decision, because in many cases, colleges, they are not aware of the latest changes in the rules. However, if you go to like an expert, they can help you with having access to those courses that you're entitled to. So think about your immigration status, think about any restriction, and think about the funding opportunities that you have. When it comes to college courses, these are the main levels that most colleges offer. So if you have in any town, any city, any neighborhood in the UK, we have some local further education colleges. And then most of the time they have entry. So for instance, if you're in an ESOL course, probably you have heard about entry 1, entry 2, entry 3 ESOL. So those are entry level courses. But then we have level 1, level 2, and level 3. Most of the time, when you start a vocational training, so if you're doing a course in healthcare, you don't necessarily need to start from entry or from level 1. When you go to the college, when you start your application, there will be an assessment, an initial assessment. In that, they are going to have like a basic assessment of your reading, writing, math, and kind of basic study skills. And based on that, they can put you in level 1, level 2, or level 3. So don't think that because you don't have previous education in that area, so if you've never studied accountancy, you are going to start from entry. No, there will be some a basic exam, and if you have a basic understanding of math and basic reading skills, probably you are going to be put in level 1. But before that, to decide what to study, and similar to what Mish explained in her presentation, these are a few questions that you need to ask yourself. So basically, is it something that you really and genuinely like to do for the rest of your life? Because it's not a short-term course. You are going to do that short-term course so that you can work 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in that job until retirement. So ask yourself about, is it something that you're really interested in and you have the basic skills to do those kind of jobs or not? The level that you're ready to start with, think about the payments, and then the other commitments that you may have in life. So if you have children and you have childcare responsibilities, you may be limited in terms of the number of hours that you can spend on your training. So probably you can think about a part-time training than a full-time training. And it's always good to visit your local college and speak with advisors. There are advisors in every single college, and that's their job, to give you a specific advice to relevant to your situation. These are the main qualifications if you decide to do vocational training. Functional skills, and again, I assume many of you are already familiar with functional skills. You go to college, you have a combination of ESOL, math, and IT or ICT, and at the end of that, they will give you level 1 or level 2 functional skills. You can use them to apply for jobs, or you can use your level 1 to continue to level 2, and then your level 2 to continue to level 3, and then your level 3 to continue to the next level. However, there are more specific vocational qualifications. A very famous one is BTEC, the other one is NVQ, and apprenticeship. In the next few slides, I'm going to very briefly explain each of those, and just trying to show how they are different in terms of the opportunities that they provide in the future for you. So first, ESOL and functional skills, as I said, the combination of English, math, IT. You can have entry, level 1 and level 2. You go to college, you apply. Based on your level, you will be assigned to continue and each level usually takes between 3 to 6 months. It depends on how good you are in making progress. But then in a space of like a year or two, you can progress from entry to level 2, and level 2 is a relatively good level to start applying for jobs or even applying for university courses. The other one is BTech. BTech is a vocational training, again delivered by college. It's a very popular one here in the UK. There are different levels of BTech, starting from entry to level 1, level 2, and then the BTech Nationals on level 3. BTech is good for people who know which industry they are interested in. So there are more than 2,000 qualifications, BTech qualifications and courses, but they are in 16 different sectors and industries. So for instance, if you are interested in jobs in healthcare, but you don't know what a specific job you are interested in, BTech in healthcare is a good option for you. If you are interested in in jobs in engineering or in construction, then BTech in construction is a good option for you. You can start from level 1 and level 2, and you can continue to level 3. And these kind of courses, they train you specifically for those industries, which means if you have a BTech in construction, you don't have a skills for BTech in healthcare. That's why it's important to know the industry that you're interested in from the very beginning. So assessment is based on assignments, is based on the projects, and it's very active. It's a combination of more practical learning and training and less a few hours of class-based teaching. Again, very popular and good option if you know the industry that you're interested in. So you can have the basic skills to apply for jobs in that industry. Then we have NVQs, or National Vocational Qualification. Again, we have more than 1,000 different NVQs. The difference between NVQ and BTech is NVQ is good for someone who knows what a specific job they want to have in future. Because these are more technical courses, they are not based on the industry, but they are based on a particular job. So you can have NVQ in plumbing, NVQ in accountancy, NVQ in plastering, NVQ in hair and beauty, which means if you have them, you learn how to do that job, but you cannot use that degree for other jobs because you're specifically trained to do those kind of jobs. The next one, which again, very popular one, is apprenticeship, which is a combination of, again, more training and work and less college education. So you work for an employer, apprenticeship is paid, they pay you for your training and they pay you to go to college for your education, but that's usually in the beginning less than the minimum wage. Again, you are interested in becoming an admin for you're more interested in admin type of jobs. You apply for apprenticeship in business, for instance, or apprenticeship in management. A company will hire you as an apprentice. They pay you to go to their company and work 4 days a week and then go to college and study 1 day a week. And then at the end of the year, at the end of 2 years, at the end of 3 years, you will have apprenticeship level 1, level 2, or level 3, which then you can use to apply for jobs. Or even if you decide to go to university, you can use your BTech and sometimes your apprenticeship to apply to university. So don't think if you've gone to BTech route, there is no way back to university. Many universities, they accept BTech for undergraduate admission. I'm not going into the detail of access to higher education. This is mainly for people who would like to go to university, but they don't have the requirements. But again, it's a very good college course. If you have been out of education for a few years and now you want to return to university, access is a good option. So you need to find the course that you're interested in. You need to gather more information about it. You need to apply for the course. So if you are decided to go to college in September, usually you need to start your application process 6 months before, so that you have a place or an offer from that college, because most of the time colleges, they have more applications than the number of spaces that they have available. And that needs a bit of planning. So find the course, find the college, find out more about the criteria, and then apply. And then when you have your offer, you can start from the next semester, the beginning of the next semester. As I said, you need to understand how your immigration status can affect your access to these courses in terms of the access to the course and access to funding, and try to see whether you're eligible and you meet the criteria in terms of, if you apply for a level 3, you need to have a level 2. So if you apply for a level 2, you need to already have a level 1 qualification. So understanding that you meet all the criteria. Again, because many of you are trying to go back to your professional career or to your kind of field of study, it's always good to think about not starting from the scratch, but starting from where you have strengths in. So if you have a previous degree, if you have previous work experience, always start from where you are, and then try to think about the kind of skills that you have, which can enable you to be more successful in your future jobs. For instance, if you have practical skills, if you know that you are good in working with your hands, manual skills, probably jobs in construction, maintenance, engineering, and logistics are better options for you. But then, if you are better in like cooking or hospitality, then go for NVQs or BTECs in catering, in hotels, in food productions, event management, and so on. And similarly, if you are good in caring for people, if you are a very sympathetic, empathetic person, then probably jobs, BTECs, NVQs, apprenticeships in health and social care or childcare or support work are more suitable for you. So always think about, you don't need to, because you are new to this country, that doesn't mean you are new to everything. You already have some experience, some strengths, some qualifications, some backgrounds, that if you identify them, you can start building on them instead of going and starting from the scratch. It can save you time and save you other resources and money. Very briefly, in terms of the job application process, in the UK, you search for job. Most of the jobs are online. You prepare a CV, you apply for a job, you fill the application form. If you fit the job, if you if you meet the criteria, then you will be shortlisted for an interview. And then if you perform good in that interview, you will be offered the job. So this is the very kind of typical roadmap from searching to finding to applying to interview and then to having the job offer. And it's very important to work on your employability skills. So it's not enough to go to university, it's not enough to go to a college course, but most of the employers, from the very basic jobs to very top high-level jobs, they would like you to have a combination of these skills, from awareness of the business that you're applying for, communication skills, numeracy, IT, problem solving, and so on and so forth. So these are the skills that you need to have in mind. If you're not good at some of them, probably you need some kind of training, even could be an online training, to improve those skills so that you increase your chance of having job applications successful. Again, it's very difficult to make progress without having the right support at the right time. Okay, at most of you need to deal with different type of challenges at the same time. You have family commitments, you have work commitments, you have uh, study commitments, and so on and so forth. But the good news is there are support available across the country in different areas of support. And these are some of the best organizations that I've been working with. And so Launchpad, the host for today's event, they are very good, very excellent, very well performed in the last few years in terms of improving employability. But then there are some other organizations specifically working on entrepreneurship, like Turn, some specifically working on higher education and further education, like refugee education, some again very specifically on employment, like breaking barriers. The point is, make sure that you follow some of these organizations so that you are aware of the latest opportunities for you in terms of education, in terms of employment, and in terms of support. One good way is to join their mailing lists. Many of these organizations, they have mailing lists every week, every 2 weeks, every month. They send that instead of you actively searching for them, they send you a list of the latest opportunities for people from asylum, immigrants, or refugee backgrounds. So if I'm going to ask you for one thing today, is please do join the mailing list of some of these organizations, and you will see the difference. You'll see in a month or in 2 months' time, you are in contact with so many different kind of opportunities when it comes to education and training. So probably choose one course, one document, or one support service to follow up after